So let me ask you a question. What's one thing in your life that's supposed to be a non-negotiable, but if you're being honest, you negotiate with it all the time?
Like eating clean until somebody says, "Hey, tacos."
Exactly. or maybe no phone after 9 p.m. and suddenly it's midnight and you're researching air fryers that you don't even need.
Yeah, like that gym rule that somehow turns into a long weekend of reflection and snacks.
Yes. So we all draw these lines in the sand. And then life just kind of laughs and sends a wave over them.
Yeah, which, it means maybe the issue isn't the line, right? It's maybe where we draw it.
One time I wrote this little quip, I guess. Mm-hmm. Knowing his weakness, he drew a hard line in the sand close to the shore.
Well, you know what? That's brilliant because sometimes, like you're talking about, we set these boundaries. We already know that the tide's going to test these boundaries, and yet we set them there anyway.
So, today that's what we're going to talk about. Non-negotiables. Not from pressure, but from practice. The kind that actually can hold up when the tide comes in.
All right. Well, let's coin it.
Welcome to the Nature of Everything podcast with Bo and Clint, where we deep dive into the world of personal development through coin. Confirm it, own it, be intentional, and change the nature of everything.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Nature of Everything. I'm Bo.
And I'm Clint. And today we're going to look into something that's been showing up in our own lives lately, and that's those non-negotiables.
You know what? This one's really personal for me right now. I've been working on creating some non-negotiables around health and finances and just kind of how I show up every day. And it sounds easy when you say it, like set your standards. We wrote that in the book, but living it out, that's a whole different story.
Yeah, it's funny how setting a standard in theory, it feels like empowerment, but in practice, it feels like confrontation.
It does. That's a great word, confrontation. That's exactly what it feels like.
Sure.
You start realizing how often you're negotiating with yourself, saying like, oh, well, I'll start tomorrow. Or my favorite, I earned a break. But here's the truth. If it's negotiable, it's really not a standard. It's just a preference.
Yeah. You know what? That's really where coin comes in, because own it, that second pillar of coin, means you've got to own your boundaries as well. You can't confirm who you are and then let yourself off the hook every time life gets busy or complicated or difficult or stressful.
And I think that's where people get hung up. It's where I get hung up.
Sure.
I think we hear non-negotiable, but we're thinking discipline, like punishment and restriction. But what if it's not that? What if it's just practice like we always talk about? Like the repetition of what matters most until it just becomes part of your nature.
To your point, non-negotiables, they're not about pressure. They're actually about peacefulness. They're the things that you've practiced enough that they don't require some crazy willpower anymore.
Yeah. It's not supposed to feel like you're constantly forcing yourself. Maybe it's supposed to feel like you're reinforcing yourself.
Yeah. That's quite the shift. The more you practice what's personal and present and pressing, the 3 Ps that we talk about in the book, the more those practices sort of evolve into your non-negotiables. They're no longer rules. They're that rhythm that we talk about as well.
They become part of the way that you just move through life, part of your nature. So today we're going to unpack what makes a non-negotiable work and how to set one that might actually stick, and how to know when you've drawn that line too close to the shore.
All right, so let's start here, because I think when people hear the word non-negotiable, they picture this hardcore, militant version of discipline and the drill sergeant running around yelling things like, "No sugar ever again, soldier," or you will wake up at 4:30 every morning forever and ever and ever. But really, we're talking about standards, those things that define how you live, not for a season, but as a way that you are, as a way of you being.
In the book, we talked about setting your standards, and that's what this is. Your non-negotiables are your standards in motion. Mm-hmm. They're the boundaries that protect the life that you say that you want.
Sure. Where people get tangled up where I get tangled up is when we confuse like these standards with resolutions. Because resolutions are often about what you want to achieve, like what you're setting out to possibly hit the mark with. Standards, they're about who you've decided to be.
Man, that's it right there. Resolutions, goals, like they say, I'm going to try, where standards say, like, this is who I am.
And that's a completely different energy. Resolutions, those are those things that sort of depend on motivation. Like, how did you wake up today? Did you wake up ready to give it that good try? Where standards, that's not how that works. Those standards, they depend on your identity, who you are, that I am at that moment.
Yeah, that's why we say that coin is not about chasing emotional highs. It's about practice. Because when you live by your standards, your non-negotiables, it stops being about willpower and it just becomes about alignment.
And you know what? That alignment piece, I mean, it's huge. It's such a big part of what we want to do with this. It's what turns those rules into rhythms. It's how your life sort of functions and at the pace that you desire. And you're not forcing those, but like you said earlier, they're reinforcing who you are already. And they're certainly reinforcing who you're becoming.
So the point is not to build a list of things that you should be doing. It's to clarify what you won't compromise, what's personal, present, and pressing for you right now.
Once you identify that, when you set those standards, you start living on purpose instead of chasing that hard to find, like that elusive progress. You're actually living with purpose.
And I'll tell you, it's been my focus lately, asking what's really non-negotiable for me right now. Because those answers, they change over time and they evolve as we do.
Sure. That evolutionary piece, that's the point. Like standards shouldn't trap you. That shouldn't feel like they're holding you down. Your standards should actually be tracking your growth.
Let's go there because now when you start talking about standards and non-negotiables, people might start to feel a little weird, feel that word creeping in. Discipline.
Oh,
discipline's coming. And that's where we want to make the shift from pressure to practice.
Yeah, because when we say non-negotiable, I think that phrase alone, that can even probably scare people off if you don't put it into context. It sounds like there's no room to stumble or that practice piece. Like if you mess up once, you've broken the contract, it's done, nowhere to go.
But the truth is the stumble doesn't break the standard. It just reveals where you're still practicing it. You can't call something non-negotiable until you've confirmed it and owned it and practiced your way into it.
Yeah. And you know what? I do think that is a piece that if you're not careful, you may skip it. You may want to declare a non-negotiable before you've actually done that confirmation piece. But I mean, like we've said in the past, you can't own what you hadn't clarified through confirming it, through that confirmation.
Yeah, and that's what confirmation really is. It's just honesty. Sure. Why does it matter? Why does this need to be protected in my life? Because if you don't know why, the pressure of keeping it up will crush you.
I guess realistically, the why, it's the difference between punishment and purpose. When you understand the reason behind a standard, it stops feeling like that rule. It stops feeling like that discipline if you understand the why. I think that's when it can start feeling more like self-respect.
I've been sitting with this a lot lately, asking why is this thing not a non-negotiable for me? I've been asking myself hard questions like, why does my health matter? Financial stuff. And why does being intentional with my time matter? And once I answer that honestly, and I'm still working on those answers, then I can own it. Then it's not about discipline anymore. It is about my alignment.
That's how it turns from pressure into practice. Once you've confirmed, again, that why piece, once you've sat with that and you've confirmed the why, it makes sense that the practice, your next steps application practice piece of this becomes that natural expression of what you figured out, your clarity, as it were.
It's the bridge between who you are and who you are trying to become.
Yeah, because you're not lowering the bar. You're actually learning to stand under it, I guess.
It's a little limbo.
I guess, yeah.
But you're right. The goal is not to relax the standard; it's to rise into it. Practice is how you build the strength to hold on to that thing that you declare as a non-negotiable.
To your point, I guess that's when it actually becomes true. Not because you said it, not just because you spoke it into existence, but because you're actually living into it. You're living into it enough times that it becomes like your nature.
Yeah, that's really a powerful sentence. That's good stuff. I mean, when we say non-negotiable, we're not saying perfect. We're saying practiced. Practiced until it's proven.
I'd say though, but before you start adding like 10 things to your non-negotiable list, I think it's important that we actually take that pause and really ask ourselves honestly, like, have you confirmed this? Can you confirm for yourself that this is a non-negotiable? Do you really understand the why behind this being non-negotiable for you? Because without that, I don't believe that you get the ability to really, stand strong and stick your flag in the ground and have a standard and really make that commitment if you don't understand the why piece.
Yeah, because that's where it all begins. It's not simple. As we've been talking through this, I keep thinking about this thing you and I talk about how deep it actually goes. Like we may coin a simple acronym, confirm it, own it, be intentional, change the nature of everything. But honestly, every time we dig into it, I realize how much space is inside those 4 words.
It's wild, actually. It's pretty heavy, like on the surface. It sounds like this simple little tool, but like once you start really digging into this inside of it, I mean, there really is just a whole way of seeing life.
I mean, every little thing in your life, creating your non-negotiables, it opens up a world of reflection if you're willing to look. Sure. You can go as deep as you want, but it is important not to get stuck in the depths either. At some point you got to come back up and you got to live this out.
Yeah. And so maybe it's fair, maybe to pull it up from the depths, maybe we put some handles on this thing. Like,
yeah, I need them.
Maybe like when you're trying to figure out what actually belongs on your non-negotiables list or your standards, truthfully, it's however you want to look at it, whether your standards or non-negotiables, like the terminology you choose, whatever. But I think it comes back to the 3 Ps: personal, present, and pressing.
It's one of my favorite filters because it keeps things real. We might love the idea of big goals, but half of them probably aren't even ours. Like they're borrowed from social media or guilt or somebody else's expectation.
And I completely agree. Then let's talk about the first one, personal. Is it personal? Realistically, if it doesn't belong to you, then obviously it's not one of your non-negotiables. So if it does matter to you, why does it matter to you? What part of your story is this protecting? Or what story is this like pushing forward?
Like for me right now, health. Health is personal. Sneaking up on midlife here. But look, it's not about vanity. It's about energy. It's about longevity and clarity. It's about being able to show up in my work and for my people. That's the why. And when I forget that, I drop it just the second it gets inconvenient.
Well, let me go ahead and say that you're not sneaking up on anything. Number 2 is it present? And I'm going to tell you, midlife is present for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I hate to break it to you, but you can confirm it's present for you. In all seriousness, like this is huge because it really actually keeps you so grounded in the reality of the moment. Like we really love to set standards for the future version of ourselves, but look, you can't keep a promise that only the future you can afford. I mean, you have to be careful. Like you have to look at whether or not this is for you now.
I mean, it's like you're saying, I'm going to run 5 miles every morning. But your current you hasn't even walked around the block in 6 months. So we might have to start a little smaller.
Absolutely. So to your point, like make it fit the season that you're in. I was reading something, I can't remember. It said, if you're depressed, you're living in the past. And if you're anxious, you're living in the future. It's kind of that moment to think about where we are. Is this present? Because a standard that isn't aligned with your present reality, I think it just becomes another reason to feel anxious or behind. I think it's really important to ask often, like, what is true right now? Like, what is possible right now? I say start there.
And that brings us to the third one, pressing. This is the one that probably gets overlooked, but it's the most important. Like, what's urgent for your growth right now? What's the gap that's actually costing you your peace?
Yeah, and you know what? Talking about the peace part of this, if it's not pressing, then realistically, it's probably just noise. And too often, I think that we try to place everything is so important, and everything is not always important. So if you make everything important, then you can't prioritize. Then nothing ends up being important. For instance, if pressing issues may be finances, and I realize it, like money stress, it leaks into everything, whether it's your focus, like your sleep, your mood, like money stress, that can leak into everything.
It doesn't leak into my pocket, but it definitely leaks into my mood. You know what I'm saying? It's not fair.
Yes, it's not fair, ever.
This is what Coin's all about. You have to confirm it. You have to get honest about why certain things show up. You have to own it, and you have to take actual responsibility, and you have to be intentional, and you build a practice that kind of puts some protection around that thing. And then over time, you really will change the nature of everything.
Absolutely. That's the entire loop. And in those 3 P's, personal, present, pressing, they're how you find the standards that actually matter. They're the difference between just writing down goals and actually living by what you decide are your non-negotiables.
Yeah, because once you've filtered through those 3, I'm going to argue that you don't need motivation. You don't need a Pinterest quote. You've already got the meaning of why it matters. And the meaning is going to carry you a lot farther than motivation will.
If you're listening right now, maybe just take a second to think about it and figure out what's one area of your life that feels out of alignment. And I say we start there. Ask yourself, whatever is feeling out of alignment, is it personal? Is this present for now? And then is it pressing? And if you really work through those, that is how you confirm this for the moment.
Then you simply practice it until it becomes your nature.
Yeah, the more we talk about this, the more I realize, like, setting the non-negotiables, it sounds like you're building this fortress, but realistically, and here I am making the bow style metaphors, but it's really more like planting a garden. You're not walling yourself in, but I mean you're just protecting what you want to grow, and so it's not as brutal as the fortress sounds. It's more inviting as the garden would be.
Exactly. And that's why we like visual metaphors, because they are soft and lovely.
I know you're proud of me for that one. That was a good one. I know.
But like it's not about saying no to everything. It's about saying a very clear yes to what actually matters.
Yeah, and that's where the practice piece really kicks in. Again, the garden metaphor, you water it, you pull the weeds, and you show up. I mean, you're not like yelling at the dirt for it not being a tree yet.
I agree. I mean, like, you don't look at your tomato plant that's like 3 days old and you're just like, pathetic. Where's my salad?
I mean, yes, but I feel like it's how we treat ourselves, like, way too often. We set a non-negotiable and we expect like some instant transformation.
We expect to declare it once and we wake up enlightened. But real non-negotiables, real standards, they have to take root. You've got to tend to those things. You've got to practice your way into them. You can't have them overnight. I mean, I think in the book, we talked about discipline. It's only something that you can see looking backwards, not looking forwards.
Yeah. Yeah, you work your way into it as a disciplined practice, as it were. That's where the 3 Ps really help. Like, when it's personal, when it's present, and when it's pressing, you don't have to force it. I mean, it already has the weight and the gravity. It already matters.
That's when you know your why. And then once you know that, you don't have to bully yourself into keeping up with it. You just do it because it's aligned, because you're aware.
When it's aligned, it actually feels lighter. I guess that's really the irony. A true non-negotiable, it doesn't box you in. It actually frees you up.
Because you're not renegotiating with yourself every 5 minutes. Like, you made a decision. You act with intention.
Like, your energy isn't spent. It's kind of like you've pre-decided your peacefulness.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's like pre-deciding peace. You've taken, your own argument away from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the beauty of it all. It's not just some tool. It is that rhythm that you talked about. You confirm it and own it and you practice it, and slowly it becomes your nature. I mean, you're not having to force it because you're living it.
You practice your way into peacefulness. Like you coin your way into clear peacefulness. Coin your way into clarity, I guess. Yeah.
That's a good one. I got the bumper sticker guy calling. I'm going to get those printed. Everybody slap them on your vehicle. But look, before we wrap up, let's think about something. Like, what's one area of your life, and I'm going to think about my life, that deserves to become a non-negotiable? And not because you're supposed to be a good boy or girl, but because you've confirmed it and because you know deep down that it really matters.
Yeah, like what's the one thing that is personal, that is present, and it's pressing for you, like right now in this moment? The thing that realistically, if you practiced it, it could change the way you show up for yourself and your family, your work, like just the environment around you.
I mean, because that's what this is really all about. We've said it a million times at this point. It's not an overnight overhaul. It's about one small intentional shift at a time. And that shift, it could change everything.
And it really can. I mean, a new standard, a new practice, like a new way of seeing and viewing yourself. That's really how this stuff starts. That's how you start to change the nature of everything.
Yeah. So wherever you are, whatever season you're in, like, we're stoked that you showed up today, because seriously, these conversations, they only matter because you're a part of them.
Absolutely. By all means, consider us your friends already. We're just figuring this out right alongside of you. Give yourself some credit for showing up. And I say start coining that next piece of your life, whatever it may be.
I dig it.
Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to check out coinyourlife.com and find us on social media.